And this is the dilemma I'm in, which I didn't really want to answer honestly. They have this habit, a really bad habit of telling the truth.
Very well documented that you were taking a lot of hard drugs at the time, and that was extremely excessive.
When I was taking, and I was in those moments, especially alone with a guitar, in that fevered state, they were the moments that always created this sudden, fuck, this is it, I'm going. And
I'm going as in I'm going to die?
Yeah, I'd make it through to the other side, and the drugs are gone, and I've got this song.
When you look back on that era, what do you feel?
It's the rush and madness of youth and being young, and dance moves, even crap ones, and energy and lust to see everything, do everything, and write and write and write.
Hello, Pete.
Hello.
You good?
I'm all right, yeah, I'm all right. I've got a bit of a feet thing going on at the moment. Diabetes toes, so the toes went really wrong. They went all, this is not very chic, but they went all black, and then they were going to have to come off, so I had to amend my diet and stop drinking, and yeah, they're kind of on the mend now.
That's
but
good.
In the meantime, I have to wear.
You got to wear these orthopedic shoes.
Yeah.
But if anyone's going to make them look cool, it's you.
I don't know. I can see it behind their eyes when they say, "Oh no, they were right." When actually, you just say, "Pete, you look like a right dildo in your orthopedic shoes."
But you've gone for really good socks, so I think that's what you've got to focus on now is socks.
Yeah, little victories. Yeah.
But that's really good. So your diet.
Apart from that,
you're good.
Because I have to watch the toes. I'm all right. Yeah, I'm good.
How's the not drinking?
It's all right. It's easier than I found it in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm letting myself have a drink once in a while, like once every 10 days, but something has sort of shifted in me, that need, just that way I was before, where it was just an integral part of everything, is it's sort of faded a bit now. I don't know, something has switched where it's just easier not to do it.
Is that because you're feeling content?
I've got a young baby at the moment as well, which is like, it's a 24/7 thing as well, and you can't be munted, really. It's not.
You can't. It's not fun.
Fair, no.
It's also not fun when you're hungover. Dealing with any age of child is just not fun.
Yeah. So just being there and alert for her. I am content in some ways, like that, domestic, quite quiet really. We live in the sticks, in the country, dogs and the baby, and then obviously I have bursts of madness, go on the road and do the shows with the Libertines or on my own. But yeah, there seems to be a good pattern and seem to be in a good place.
That's so good to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got one of your dogs, Gladys, here with us today, who is
Gladys,
so gorgeous. Look at her, honey-coloured babe. And you've come over from France, where you're living at the moment. Mm-hmm. You were meant to bring 2 dogs. You've got 1 here.
We got stopped at the border, me and my wife and the baby, Gladys and Zeus, who's the other dog, and there was there's so many moving parts now. See, I'm not going to just blame Brexit, but it's so difficult now to get across the border and keeping on top of all the vaccines, and I won't go into detail, maybe I will. So if you have the rabies vaccine in consecutive years on the same day, you don't have to have it for another 5 years. And we were a couple of days out from having it on the same day 2 years in a row. And
what nonsensical madness.
Sort of. But then they said to us, we had a proper row with the lady. She said that people abandon their dogs, so we had to prove they wouldn't let us even go through. We had to prove that the dog wasn't being abandoned, because apparently people, when they're told they can't take the dog through, a lot of them just leave it on the motorway.
Leave their dog?
Yeah.
Who are these people?
No, it's same people that abandon their kids, or, I don't know, abandon hope.
What?
It's just what happens, isn't it?
That's outrageous.
But I said to her, oh no, that never occurred to me. What a good idea. But she didn't see the funny side of that.
Right.
So it was all a bit upsetting that. And I had to leave my wife, baby, and Zeus.
Yeah,
so
that's not
she's
nice.
getting her late a train. But
we've got Gladys,
Gladys
and
is here, yeah.
there is something so calming about having a dog or any animal around when having a conversation with someone. There's something energetic about it, which is just lovely. I feel instantly calm having Gladys in the room. I'm glad you brought Gladys.
I think so. Since I've started taking her on the road as well, because when I play acoustic shows, she just sits on stage. It's not like with the Libertines where, it's lots of noise and she doesn't like it so much. So venues that I've played for years where I've never really clicked with, say, I don't know, the local sound engineer, all of a sudden you're breaking down barriers just because, this sound engineer who's always been like a grumpy arsehole is suddenly like rolling around the floor with Gladys. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
It's so lovely.
Telling her how much he hates people but loves dogs, and then he sees, for some reason, he sees me in a different light then, and then I get a good sound for the first time at the Middlesbrough Town Hall. Wasn't the Middlesbrough Town Hall, but yeah.
I'm not going to pinpoint any individuals here. We're just going to leave Gladys sort of slightly lightly snoring there. She can just chill out and relax while we're chatting.
Is that her or is that your hair?
No, look there. See, she's just snoring.
Yeah, that'll get louder and louder
peaceful.
as well. Yeah.
It's so lovely. It's making me feel sleepy. It's funny because I don't know.
And how are you?
I'm really good. I don't know if we've ever properly had a chat, which is so strange because, I mean, we're a similar age. When the Libertines broke onto the scene, I was very in the mix of that world. I was hanging out in Camden the whole time. I was doing radio and Top of the Pops, and I loved seeing you guys live. I saw you tons of times back in the day. I definitely remember one gig where, infamously, you guys would be late. And I think I waited 3 hours in a venue.
Traffic,
probably traffic, for you guys to come on. And then when you would, it would just be the whole room was at fever pitch waiting for you to get on the stage. And so it's lovely to now sort of see you all these years down the line and all the different iterations of your music and what you've done with your art. It feels like a really good time to talk to you about all of it. I mean, when you look back on those days where, I mean, you guys were... So
you like Queens of Noise era?
I loved them. I actually copied Mairead's hair and dyed it black with a white bit at the front because I was so obsessed with her.
Yeah.
And Tabitha. They were the coolest people. And Tom Frog, like all of that gang.
Yeah. I was so in love with Tabitha Denholm, actually. Yeah.
I mean, they were the coolest people ever. I wanted to be even, a centimetre as cool as them. And I certainly wasn't. But I loved that whole era of music, just felt electrifying. And there were so many brilliant artists around and bands doing really different things. Like it was a whole new sound and a whole new scene. And you were everywhere, being dragged from pillar to post. It was obviously a time of great excess and pleasure-seeking and chaos. When you look back on that era, what do you feel?
I don't really see it as, when I look back at it, I'm not trying to be contrary. I don't really see things in terms of, because it's quite chaotic in my mind as well as a memory. I don't see it in terms of years but sometimes I'll see a photograph or hear a snatch of song and I'll feel exactly what I felt then, really, which is just, I suppose, just the rush and madness of youth and being young and just full of dance moves, even crap ones, and energy and lust to see everything, do everything, and write and this weird need we had I had to share it all, you know what I mean? To share it all in song. And I mean, thank God there was no social media back then, do you know what I mean? Because, yeah, it was just song lyrics. That was really the only way to really put it out there. I don't know, I suppose I feel a kind of joy and trying to work out in my mind what really happened and what didn't. And yeah, in my head it's just this collage of joy. I mean, I could just like Tabitha and Mairead used to do this weird stage diving thing where, like the dance where you hold your nose and go like that.
Yeah.
That sort of 60s dance. They'd jump off the stage doing that, you know what I mean? Even if there was no one to dive into. So when we were doing the really small gigs in pubs and they'd be throwing themselves around and then, over quite a short space of time, months, a year, we were playing bigger places, Kentish Town Forum and Brixton Academy, and they'd be doing it there, you know what I mean? And I was with my mates, with Carl and John and other mates in bands, all in the melee, just chasing our dreams, realising our dreams sometimes. And yeah, good old knees up, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there is like quite heavy tragedy interlaced with it all, you know what I mean? But probably like all the best fairy stories, you need those moments of drama. And
things are very rarely two-dimensional. They're very rarely one thing.
I think we were pretty messed up, and in many ways, then they've got proper definitions for it now, but there's a lot of sadness and anger in the songs. But for those brief moments, we were able to feel free and fulfilled. You know what I mean? That's what being a band gave us. You know what I mean? I see it now a little bit when I see Fontaine's DC videos. I don't really know them. I've met them once or twice, but I get the sense that they're pretty fucked up. I mean, they're pretty messed up, but they have these concentrated moments of joy and bringing people together with their music. You know what I mean? So you just sort of cross your fingers and hope that the roller coaster stays on track. But I suppose that's what it's like for all young people, isn't it? You know, unless you're secure in yourself and you got an old head on young shoulders, you take risks and chances. And now I'm really just babbling, aren't I? Go on, you ask me.
No, not at all. I mean, but it was the most sort of indescribable time almost, because like you say, there was all this joy, but there was also utter chaos as well, and a lot of it you were inciting it. And I don't know if that was conscious or it was just an expression of how you guys were feeling or what you wanted an audience to feel. But of course that extended off stage as well. And, you know, it was very well documented that you were taking a lot of hard drugs at the time, and that was extremely excessive. When you look back on that era, and especially the drug taking, can you get to the root of what that was? Was it purely fun and liberation, or were you trying to escape something, escape your own mind, or I don't know, trying to get out of your own head to just be as free as possible?
I'd always been very curious about drugs. I'd been very, not cosseted, but it'd been a disciplined upbringing and army barracks and that. And, you know, this world of drugs and being a band, it was so alien. It's so, yeah, she said
Gladys.
Well.
She's like, fucking hell.
It was so alien to me. You know what I mean? This kid in an army barracks reading The Enemy. And sort of picking up a guitar for the first time, and this idea, this mythologizing, this self-mythologizing thing I started at that age. I just had to fulfill it, and I think I was sold hook, line, and sinker on all the mythologies, on everything, you know, from how you had to look to how you had to live and how you had to walk, and which I can understand to a lot of people seems, well, there is a superficiality to it, and we'll leave it at that. Was that her belly? A superficiality to the dog's bowels, but for me, it just turned me on. I was just like, it was like, you know, some fellow in pointy boots with bells on playing his pipe down the cobble streets of Hamlin, and I was just a little kid saying, "What is that sound? I got to follow it and do whatever he tells me to do." And it turned out it was Pan, and he was going to Arcadia, and it wasn't really, I didn't want to dwell too much on what I was trying to escape. It was more about what I was going to see and what I was going to feel, and I think I'd thought a lot, probably too much, about the world around me and history and society and class, and I dabbled in trying to, you know, attend things and listen to people, and I couldn't really get anything from it. With music and poetry and film, I got so much back, you know what I mean? And in those moments, yeah, I did feel free, but thought a lot. It was my world. I longed to be part of it, and I longed to be in a band and create a band and go on a magic journey, you know? I was brought up on, like, you know, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks and Mary Poppins and, you know, and all those Disney films, Robin Hood, and Jungle Book, where you go off into a dark world, but it all comes shining through, and you all come, like, singing out of the shadows in a massive joyous chorus, you know what I mean, with all the animals and plants joining in, and it all turns out well, you know what I mean? and you fight the good fight, and you're fighting for the right side. You know what I mean? There's a kind of innocence and naivety to it, even with the drugs, really, which I must have fantasized, romanticized a lot to myself when I look back at it like that.
I mean, you said specifically with heroin, it sort of unlocked a door to another plane, a portal that you were getting a lot from creatively, and I'm sure just imagination-wise, you know, you're stepping into a new realm. Is that something, you know, because there's the ritual of the drug taking, there's the escapism, the liberation, but if you're using it to drive creativity, do you miss that? Can you recreate that without
I
drugs?
felt like I was never. I mean, you know, I like to kick a football about, and I was quite a good runner, but I was never like a super good athlete. Do you know what I mean? Probably like my dad would have wanted. If I could have been able to, you know, do backflips and front flips, I probably would have done. And I imagine that's the same sort of feeling that you get. I think I found myself able to feel things and adjust to the world and balance myself, like mentally and creatively, in a way that I couldn't before. So my mind would adapt. So, you know, you take these things, and I found my mind was suddenly in a different state of balance, where I was able to receive and experience things like sensory or sensually, colours, sounds, and I was able to handle it. You know what I mean? I felt like I was able to walk that tightrope. You know, physically, I could never walk a tightrope, but yeah, psychotropically, I felt I was starting to find myself like in it's a really interesting place. You know what I mean? I could just stand for hours on a flyover at Neasden, watching the traffic with my little notebook and get lost in the moment, you know, and just wander off through London, you know, with my book and my guitar and write and dream. And the drugs never detracted from that. And if anything, they were the thing that was, you know, keeping me up. I mean, there's a lot of hours with drugs, you know what I mean? There's a lot of hours, you know, you got a lot of time, and you get this cloak of this force field where whatever it is you're thinking and concentrating on, you're supercharged on it, you know what I mean? But it wasn't the be all and end all, you know what I mean? I was quite cautious, really, even though like in those later days where I was seen as like this wreckhead and reckless. It was never like that at first, you know. I was very wary, and you know, this was like unfamiliar terrain, so it wasn't exactly microdosing, but it kind of was in its way. You know what I mean? It was like dipping my toe in, making sure it was all right, and it was always done in like a sacred way for me, you know.
So when do you think it became a problem, or you were cognizant of
I
it
think
being a problem?
the body just tells you, doesn't it? You know what I mean? The body tells you that you've over tipped the scales, that you're not balanced anymore. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of people like that, I mean, they never come back. You know what I mean? You watch them go one by one. So that physically, over time, your body just can't take it. Your veins, your skin, you know, you kill yourself. And with my family and people that I was close to, like Carl, and different relationships, my mum and dad, it was just created this immediate barrier where they just couldn't be doing it, couldn't be asked of it. And so that became impossible to balance, and then I just had to make the decision, right, I had to go in all in then, and then you enter different realms, you know, you talk, you know, prison and crack houses and a whole different circle of friends, a whole different neighbourhood. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't for me. Looking back, it was not the be all and end all of everything, but now, like then, really, I'm just quite interested in the subject. You know what I mean? You know, this might sound strange, but sometimes for me, just having the drug in my pocket was or you know, like the rigmarole and the endless murders you go through. Sometimes trying to get hold of the stuff. Sometimes that ended up being more interesting than actually taking a drug. don't know if that sounds daft, but
I think it's a really positive thing to be in a place with any situation that might have been troubling to you, or something that you know has caused you issues, whether it's with relationships or your body or whatever it might be, mental health, where you can be interested and curious in it rather than drowning in the aftershock of it.
right, yeah. Well,
That's where I feel I'm definitely at with certain things at this age, this point. I'm curious about it rather than, oh my God, this is so terrible, or it's so awful, this happened, or so awful, this in the past. I'm interested in all of it. I think that's a really brilliant place to be.
I think because I've been told that I'm an addict, you know, you get told time and time again in these different treatment centres that you've got a condition, you've got an illness called addiction, where you can't, in the end, you can't just do it recreationally. You can't, you know, do it once in a while. So coming to terms with that was a bit of a shock to the system, and that's taken me a while, really.
And do you feel like that label is appropriate to you now then? Because I'm sure it felt maybe misaligned before if you weren't going into it. Or...
it's spot on. I don't, you know, I'm not a doctor, but if addiction is a mental disease, which is probably, you know, probably in 50 years, that's what it will be seen as.
Yeah.
You know, they won't be locking people up.
No.
You know, for smoking crack, they'll be. I don't know. It's quite a complicated subject, isn't it? But
yeah.
But I think it's an illness. The need to do that to yourself, knowing the destruction you're causing, and still sacrifice everything for it. Yeah.
So since you've made that decision that, and I'm sure, I think I've heard you say before, your wife was pretty instrumental in giving you somewhat of an ultimatum to make these decisions and to get clarity with that. What has that been like? Because if it wasn't the be all and end all, it was obviously hugely wrapped up in your art, who you were, your personality that you were, you know, expressing to the public eye.
Yeah.
What's that been like, losing that part of your lifestyle and the rituals in your day and your life?
This is with me and Katia. It's just evolved over time, our relationship, and the closer we've got and the more time we spend together, the less I've needed to do it. I think when I was on my own more, you know, like when we were just friends or before we were living together, I could see her and then go off and do my thing for a bit. And I think the more we were together and she didn't use, you know what I mean? And so just sort of somehow learned to live without it, like reluctantly for a long time, you know? And just, yeah, well, I think she just got to the point where we were in love and I'm in love with her, and turned out she preferred me not on the drugs, and I preferred it when, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about that, but, you know, I preferred it when she was not, you know, when she liked me, you know what I mean? And we try and build a life together, you know?
Were there moments of, and this is, you know, obviously prevalent for all of us in different ways, and we'll have different things that will trigger it, but had there been moments over the years, whether you were drug taking or not, of self-loathing creeping into play, where it was either that was, you know, brought on because of the drug taking, or looking back at the past, or, I don't know, regrets?
Yeah, self-loathing is quite a heavy one. I don't know that, but embarrassment sometimes, and fear. I
don't think self-loathing is necessarily, I don't think it directly correlates to the event, because I've self-loathed over fuck all, like things that people would go, why are you worrying about that? And I have literally just dived into self-loathing. I don't think it correlates. I think it says more about you and how you perceive, well, it's your self-worth, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what that derives from, I guess.
Yeah. I'd probably be quite tentative about thinking about that too much. Probably I've got very little self-worth, really, when I think about what I've done to myself. I don't know. I'm ready to think about that. Maybe I'll get. You said you see a therapist, like.
Yeah.
I just don't think I'm
I love
ready
it.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. It's changed my whole life.
Really?
I mean, I've done it on off for years and years and years. But I found someone that I just really have clicked with in the last year. And yeah, I think especially when looking at self-worth, which I've by no means nailed, I don't think many people have, it's been completely vital in looking at that and, you know, working out who the hell I am outside of the bit that I want to show people and liking that bit of myself. And it's been really good. Really good. Have you ever done it?
No, not on that like one-to-one level with someone who you see regularly or talk to regularly. I think in the past when I've been in treatment centres, normally against my will,
Yeah.
I've clicked with certain people, but I don't really get too much into. It's easy to sort of breezily talk about the past or, you know, anecdotes, but we're actually getting into analysing myself and talking about someone. I don't think I'm capable of it. I think I'm actually too fragile to do that. I think it would take me I think I'd just break down and it'd take me an hour to stop crying, you know what I mean? And then it'd be years to put myself back together from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's doable though. I've done that. I've had a good old cry for hours and hours. Could be good.
Yeah, I'm too busy at the moment. There's too many things to do. I've got this, like, you know, I've got the babby to look after, and maybe when she's 16 or 17, I'll have a look at myself. There's loads of good stuff on the telly as well. You know what I mean? Just like rewatch The Simpsons again and again, rather than like.
I mean, that's therapy in itself. I think if you're laughing at something,
Absolutely,
that's therapeutic.
Yeah.
Would you say, I mean, we don't have to dive too deeply into this because you just said that's, you know, it's a big deal. But today, could you say you like yourself?
I don't know. I can't. I find it difficult to talk about myself in the third person like that. To like or not like myself, I don't know how I'd go about thinking like that. I don't know.
I guess I'm intrigued because I think whenever anyone's had their work put out publicly, you know, I think you can start to dig around in how much of that is pure expression. I have to create, I have to make something. And how much of that is I need validation from other people. Do you know that in terms of like the ratio in your own work over the years? How much have you needed other people to say you're fucking great?
It starts off as something that you don't think about too much. So it's like a burst of writing or songwriting where something's pure and you haven't thought about it, analysed it too much. And then when you start moving into the studio and collaborating or putting things out, then you start worrying more about what other people are going to think. But in its purest form, like I've done a little fanzine. I don't know if it should be called a fanzine. It's a bit crap to do a fanzine about yourself. But I put a typewriter on the tour bus last year for the Libertines tour, and I just left it there and got Carl and whoever to write stuff. And some of the things in there come over, like, what's this? So.
Oh, you've woken up, Gladys. Hello, babes.
When I wonder, my mind turns its darker wheeled. I set the sat-nav controls of the soul for the only place you ever called home. The place they couldn't gentrify, where the rents don't climb because you can't sublet the mind. You can't evict me from my own memory. A melody is not a felony in the realms of infinity. New and unrushed patterns of progress, carrying jubilation in your once heavy heart. Welcoming the recognition of addiction as a medical condition, an affliction, not a moral decision, to be given considered compassion, not facing conviction. Anxiety runs like an underground river of society, and we're flooding, and it's coming like tsunami. Young minds today can't find their way through the digital wasteland. Social media feeding your frenzy, getting creepier, artificially deeper, The algorithm says you'll go to prison, suffer from the crash course collision, the conviction acts with well-practiced precision. Lock a sick man already in hell in a cell and you think he's going to get well? You don't need peer-reviewed research to teach us that the system acts like a fist when it could be a healing hand.
I love that.
This is nice. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know if this was Carl.
Did you write that last one?
That last one I did, yeah.
I love that.
Listen to this. So, to feel a clown in a field of entertainers who paint their face a certain way, to cheers ambiguities and favour a brick that's broken over one that holds the fort. Breaking bird feed, rotten planks, and other various items of crap. To look at receding hairlines with impulse to slobber over gleaming yellow teeth and muddy trousers. Embracing him there, down a bit, to the left of the table, looking disgusted at the sun for being so warm. Attempting all you can at flattery to win over the cockroaches in your mortar. Aligning your best suit, stupidest shoes and worst shirt in harmony. Not being able to quite reach the bit needed to disguise the fact you can't grow a beard. Splash aftershave enough, you're already itchy. A corduroy sofa left for collection. That might be okay after a thorough boil. FB auto-corrected to fat bastard as a term of endearment. That's fucking great. I love that.
I love it.
That's darkness, man. About the beard as well. That was like...
I love this because it's... I mean, again, I believe writing is a therapy of sorts and something that we can all do. We can all wake up and we can just write down what's going on in our heads, whether it's poetry or just something that is spinning around our minds. It's really therapeutic to do that.
I love it, and I love reading. Well, I love reading poetry, but I love reading. So I've got an address here. You can get a close up on that. It's the Rayon Vert Hotel in Edgewater, and anyone who's got any poetry, short stories, lyrics, or anything, they can send it in.
That's so nice.
Fanzine. That's the idea. Well, that's what I'm trying to...
But I love that, and it's old school. We're using post. Let's do this. Let's get a stamp out.
Well, I keep losing my phone, so I don't have a phone anymore. I just do it on there.
It's so beautiful. And because I want to talk to you about this.
That's
because,
for you anyway.
Oh my God, thank you. I love that. That's so cool. I'll send you a poem.
Yeah?
I love writing poetry.
I'll hold you to that.
I write poetry all the time. It is, again, like writing, poetry, painting. I'm big into art. I paint portraits. Looking at your work over the years and how prolific you've been, whether it is songwriting.
Can I hear one of your poems?
I haven't got one on me now, and I definitely can't remember them, but I'm going to post you one.
All right.
I'm going to do it. I'll show you my paintings on my phone.
All right.
I love painting. And I think it feels, for me, looking from the outside, art, without this sounding completely wanky, but art feels like, for you, it's a matter of survival. Like, you've got to create. You've got to do this, whether it's song or poetry or drawing, sketching. Would you say that?
We have to, don't we? We do. Mankind has to. Humankind.
But we've forgotten that collectively, I think.
But we have bursts of remembrance. You know, it's like when you see I love that idea. I don't know who it was, Socrates or Plato, but the idea of the shadows at the back of the cave. I've always been hypnotised by the image. You know, you get these Paleolithic or Neolithic cave paintings, you know, where someone's got the blood of an animal.
Yeah.
And just in this cave, well, you know, the hunters have come back, putting the meat on the fire, and the tribe's there, and someone's splashing, you know, for the first time, someone's splashing images up on the wall of an ox or a man with an arrow. And can you imagine those children then, you know, it's like probably before language, looking up, seeing that. And it's the same today. It's the same for children today. You know what I mean? The child's imagination, you know, it's still there in all of us. You know?
Yeah.
We're all like,
I mean, you get to flex that muscle a lot because that's driving you to then write albums, to tour, to keep creating and keep making your music. What would you say is driving it today? Does it differ from writing that first Libertines album? What's driving those lyrics? What's inspiring you and getting you feel buzzed up to write stuff?
getting me buzzed up to write stuff.
Or even like with the album that you're...
You don't even think about it really. It's just something needs to be...
Yeah.
Something needs to be said or sung, you know? And it feels right. And you don't mind singing it again. I I like to hear people sing as well. I love, communal singing. That's what it is, communal singing, communal dancing, really. Just that movement and, all that morphing, bodies morphing, or, just people sat down listening, tapping their foot. That's cool too. People coming together, anything, football crowds, music crowds, markets. Markets are good.
When I told my dad that I was interviewing you, he was like, "Oh, you must tell him that I'm a QPR fan." And I was like, "I will." My dad, well, he's born in that area, so he was like literally next door to QPR. So yeah, my brother, they're all QPR fans.
West London. Boy.
Yeah, I was like, "Don't worry, I'll tell him, Dad."
All right.
So looking back at this piece you've written, this fanzine,
so your
here,
dad will know.
Go on.
Your dad will know if he went to Rangers in the 70s.
Well, he will have.
He'll know that is the design of the QPR programme.
Oh.
It's cut and pasted, but they always use the coloured squares.
Oh my God, Dad's gonna love that.
Yeah, so there's like 0.01% of the population, basically QPR fans who remember the 70s, who will see that and go, what?
He's gonna love it. That's for you, Mick. In that little piece you wrote that you just read out, which is so beautiful, you touch on anxiety, and obviously that was referenced in a sort of collective sense that we're all sort of, there's this undercurrent of anxiety, and it's sort of ramped up daily by everything that we're imbibing, news, social media, etc. Where's your anxiety at?
This is the weird thing. This is the weird thing that I sort of evaded your question before about what gets me buzzed up, because, and this is the dilemma I'm in, which I didn't really want to answer honestly, but I have this really bad habit of telling the truth. And that is that when I was taking drugs and I was in those moments, especially alone with a guitar, in that fevered state, often it would lead to extreme, surges of anxiety. It wouldn't necessarily last, and they were the moments that always created this like sudden, fuck, this is it. I'm going. I've got to write a brilliant song right now. And I'm going
to die?
Yeah, this is right. It. There's no way forward now. I can't walk this tightrope anymore. And then I'd have to do something. I'd have to write something so beautiful and perfect that, just for myself, and then I'd make it through to the other side. Do you know what I mean? The heart would slow down and blah, blah, and the drugs are gone, and I've got this song, and that would happen a lot. And then you end up building whole albums around those, 2 or 3 weird, intense moments that then you can build on or inspire someone else to write a riff or different lyrics. And without that, I'm not that arsed, really, about writing songs. I mean, I love music and I'll always love playing music, but that need to write and create, it was kind of fueled by the anxiety and darkness. Now, it wasn't always the drugs that created that, you know what I mean? As a young man, sort of teens and 20s, I was pretty melancholy anyway and angry in a lot of ways. But those, those fevered states of anxiety were just as common as, psychedelic bliss, you know what I mean, and being by, the canal in Little Venice with an acoustic guitar writing a melodic folk song, like. So it was a real strange back and forth, you know what I mean? So I don't know where it's going to come from, actually, the next thing. I might just try and write a radio play or something. I've always wanted to do that.
Do it! I'd love that. That'd be great, like the New Archers.
But I tried writing one in here, but it ended up really silly and vulgar. Like, it was a short story I wrote. It's really stupid, but
you're selling it to me already.
That's why I've put it in here. That's why I put it in here in such small type, because it's just so you can imagine someone reading this. First of all, they'd have to be able to read the
God, that is
text.
tiny.
Yeah,
I can't read that.
Half a cider, mister. Paula put her thumbs up meaninglessly, and immediately the few customers in McNamara's knew, from the decisively peculiar way she spoke and moved her hands, that there was trouble with this lass. There was at first tremendous excitement in the glass, a rapid explosion of froth and bubbly effervescence. It seemed to want to spill over and need some mopping up, but all at once, with a slight change in the pitch of the fizz, the cider relented and the breaker collapsed inside the beaker. Paula's wide eyes looked at the glass and looked and sat and looked. The cider bubbled a while and Paula sat, and the cider bubbled and Paula sat. £3.50, my love. The barman brushed breadcrumbs from his chin. Eye level, Paula looked long at the rim of the vessel. In a squint, she was a tiny model boat adrift in a bubble in an increasingly flat sea. I am not your love, she grunted in measured, sullen breaths. So that'd be more. I am not your love, she grunted in measured, sullen breaths. That's not really a grunt. So, I am not your love, she grunted in measured, sullen breaths. The barman flicked one last crusty loaf lingering and leant into his response, which he delivered humorlessly but with a broad, gap-toothed smile. Well, it's still £3.50. She farted with petulance and malevolent intent, and a tall man with a small head looked up from his crossword and tried to subvert a giggle. Ah, Jesus, Macca, won't you be having enough of that, for fuck's sake? He swilled down the last swallow of sloppy Guinness, and he moved into the snug and resumed his crossword. Paula looked around with an air of someone who has realised something of great importance she needed to share. I'll suck anyone's dick to bite it off if you can pay for me cider, she cackled loudly, farting again. A young couple heavily into a bottle of cheap wine burst into the kind of laughter that acts like a virus, and Paula soon joined in, so too for the barman, though reluctantly. Exactly as the laughter peaked and rolled away, the saloon door... Anyway, yeah, it goes on like that a bit.
I mean, Paula, I love Paula. I'm already invested in what's going to happen to Paula.
She shits herself.
Well, clearly,
and then the guy doing the crossword went, that's it. He filled in his crossword. It was, the crossword clue was diarrhea. Yeah.
Oh,
no, hang on. No, there's another guy comes in.
All right.
Exactly as the laughter peaked and rolled away, the saloon doors opened, and in stepped a small, large-headed chap in a two-piece lime green Adidas tracksuit with green Adidas Samba sports shoes on. On the back of his bonce was perched a small pork pie hat. The barman composed himself and nodded hello. Marco, you terrible arsehole. What's all the laughing for? Never mind. Good luck to you anyway. I'm smiling. And it's drinks all round. Come on now. He waved his credit card in the air and gestured to the shelves of drinks. Not for me, thanks, sweetness, said Paula. This cider gives you this... This cider gives you the city squirts. The barman protested. You've not even touched a drop. She never touched a drop of that cider. It's not the cider. Well, it looks bad enough, that's sure enough, bellowed the green chap. Paula dropped €4 pieces in the pot of cider and smiled. Cheero! She waved and left the pub, walking like she was saddle sore with yellow shit streaming down the inside of her white tights beneath her denim skirt. The green man didn't see the shit stains trickily. He smiled to himself as she left and said to everyone, "Whoa, she's fit as fuck, no?" From the snug, the small-headed man exclaimed, "That's it! Diarrhea. Gotcha." He filled in his crossword boxes with a contented smile.
I mean, why are we not making that into a radio play is the question. Someone commission it now. I want to hear what happens next to Paula and her shitty knickers.
I can see Paula's, the Catherine Tate nurse.
Yeah.
You know that nurse?
Catherine Tate would nail that.
Yeah.
I like it.
The face she does for the nurse is like, "You touch me a little bit."
I love it. But I mean, I've heard you say you want to write a novel. You say you're not asked about writing. This is clearly something you need to do. This is clearly something it's pouring out of you.
Yeah, it's just time at the moment with the baby, because me and my missus are making, everything's 50-50 and we're both there. When she starts school, have the time. But at the moment, it's, you know what I mean? And see, with the screens and that, it's so easy. You could just put cartoons on and she's gone. But Katia doesn't. She thinks that rots the baby's brain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a fine balance.
If they have too many screens, so
it's tricky.
It's all about basically just playing with her. And if I could get her into listening to me write short stories or play guitar, we'd be away. But you know what I mean, she's just.
You'll get there.
Yeah,
You'll get there with that.
The moment she's just like, she's 20 months, so I
remember that era.
Yeah,
it's full on.
You got kids?
Yeah, a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, go on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
But I remember that era of toddlers, and you can't do anything.
No.
When they start walking, then you're in deep trouble because you just have to keep an eye on them the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I want to go back on? There's something so interesting about you saying, you had these, or you would have had when on drugs, these bursts of extreme anxiety where your brain is maybe signalling, I'm going to die, I need to create something ASAP, and you do it. And I've always wondered that about how much I have a real drive to paint and to write books and to make stuff. And I feel a bit flat and a bit blue if I don't. Constantly. I have to have ideas, write them down. Even if it's an interview, feel like there's something tangible at the end of that process of thinking up the questions, writing it down, and putting it in a notepad, pen, paper, really important to me. And I wonder constantly with anyone who is, we're all creative, but anyone that is obsessed with creativity, how much of that is driven by a very subterranean, subconscious fear of dying and needing to leave something. We don't want to not exist. We want to leave something behind. Do you think that plays a part in any of it? Even now you're clean and you're not taking drugs. How much of you needs to leave something?
I don't know, really. I'm leaving things for myself in a way, but not to do with the afterlife, so say a year and a half ago I had a mad burst of creativity. I wrote a load of songs, which is what is the solo album that I've done now, and we were doing the Libertines album at the same time as well, so all these songs came out, and I just trying to think, what was the question again? Am I leaving something for after I'm gone?
It's just you want to leave a part of yourself on planet Earth.
Like,
you want to leave
I feel like I've done
a
that,
mark.
though. I feel like I've done things that I'm really proud of, and that if they're still reaching people and touching people when I'm gone, then that's ace. You know what I mean? But it's always been tricky to just feel true satisfaction and accomplishment from something you've done, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And think, right, that's it. There's never a point where it's an unfinished thing. It never finishes. Which is really half the magic of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Would you say you're a perfectionist with your work? With this album, with Calvados, you're like, that is exactly what I wanted to make. I've done it.
Sometimes I've heard that Calvados song a few times recently. I didn't want it on the album at first. It was sort of a throwaway song that just came out, but I'm quite into it now. And then I was looking at the comments on YouTube of it, and someone wrote, "Pish, the real Pete Doherty is long gone," and this pale, failed attempt to. And it was just really hit me hard, even though there was loads of nice comments as well.
It's always the shit one.
You know what I mean? But it kind of made me smile in a way as well. You know what I mean? Because there probably would have been a time when I would have got, a hacker mate to find out where this person lived, you know what I mean? and burnt him and all his family's houses down. But now it just sort of makes me smile and think, what a lovely thing to do, to go on that.
They must be a happy person.
But then it turns out, people don't really watch YouTube now anyway, apparently. Do you know what I mean? It's all Spotify and
TikTok
and different things. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So what do you do with your paintings then?
Nothing at the moment. I need to work out what to do with them. I've sort of kept it away from work because it feels too lovely to then put out there. So I sometimes put them on Instagram, but I haven't really done anything.
How many you got?
Over the years, I sort of used to paint a lot when I was in my 20s and then had kids and then didn't paint for like a decade, and now I'm back into it. So I haven't got that many, maybe 30, something like that. But I'd like to do more. But I'll show you.
Do you feel like you're leaving something for people?
I don't know. I don't think it's even a conscious thing of I need to leave it. I think there is something inherent about feeling like I've got to make something whilst I'm here. I don't even know how to articulate it, but I'm definitely... when I paint or write, especially painting though, I get really high. Like I'm buzzing. And when I finish the painting, I am buzzing for at least 48 hours. Like I can barely sleep. It's like electrifying. And nothing else does that for me. Yeah. And it's a bit like that with writing, but I'd say less so because it's more ploddy and slow. And I think painting can be more free and chaotic.
If you were to interview yourself, what would you ask yourself?
I mean, I would probably ask myself all those questions that we were sort of dissecting in the middle of this about self-worth, because I think I'm constantly going back to that and looking at it and looking at who the hell am I behind all of this stuff, and do I like that person?
Yeah, but do you go long enough without all this stuff? I mean, do you have times,
I do now.
Do you have like weeks or months where you're not
really
doing public stuff? And
the change has been allowing myself to be more me in this setting, rather than I better do what everyone wants me to do so everyone likes me. What's palatable? How would people like to hear this podcast, and what should I say, and how will the guest feel? Or not even how will the guest feel comfortable, because that's a given, I want that, but will the guest like me? I think I used to be desperate for that. Will the guest walk away and think that was enjoyable or whatever? And I think what I'm trying to do is integrate the just me at home with all of this craziness and people listening to it and people having opinions about it.
Have you got a good following? Have you got a good following?
Yeah. On the podcast, we have lots of lovely listeners who'll be loving all of this. I wish you all the success with the record, with the tour, with your little baby. It's been so lovely chatting to you today.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely talking to you.